This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream, which is, just for this week, at its cheapest price ever of $11.59 a year. Get access to bonus TLDR content, as well as all of our videos ad-free by signing up to the CuriosityStream Nebula Bundle deal, linked down below. The creation of a new country is an unusual affair, but for the last 10 years or so, Mali has been pummeled by civil war and dysfunctional politics. In fact, it's so bad that Malians have suffered through 2 military coups in just 3 years. And just last week, the ruling Malian military claimed to have foiled yet another coup attempt. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the ethnic tensions which first caused this conflict, how the conflict has been exacerbated by regional instability, and whether this could all end with the creation of a brand new African state known as Azawad. To understand this story, you're going to need a bit of context. During the 19th century, France occupied a large swath of territory in northwest Africa, which at the time was known as French West Africa. As part of the decolonization process, which occurred in the late 50s and early 60s, French West Africa was divided up into independent African states. But unfortunately for the many ethnic groups in the region, the borders that demarcated these states didn't reflect the ethnic divisions on the continent. Now, this is something that African politicians have always been aware of as an issue, but in 1964, the heads of government in the Organization of African Unity, the predecessor of the African Union, reluctantly decided to stick with the original post-colonial borders in order to promote regional stability. Essentially, they argued that while the post-colonial borders weren't perfect, redrawing the lines to match ethnic distributions would just lead to endless territorial disputes and inter-ethnic fighting. Anyway, one ethnic group who were particularly upset by these borders were the Tuareg. The Tuareg are a nomadic subgroup of the North African Berbers, who mostly reside in northeastern Mali and western Niger. In total, there are 7 main Tuareg tribes, with an estimated total population of between 2 and 4 million people. Anyway, the Tuareg were particularly rebellious under colonial law, with anti-French ethnic uprisings in 1911, 1916, and 1917. So, many Tuaregs expected to get their own state when French divvied up French West Africa. Unfortunately for the Tuaregs, though, that isn't how things played out. Instead, the Tuaregs were split across northeastern Mali and western Niger, with smaller populations in Burkina Faso, Algeria, and Libya. Now, while there are more Tuaregs in Niger than Mali, in this video we're going to be focusing on the Tuareg uprising in Mali, because that's mostly where the prospective Azawad state would be. Anyway, in Mali, the Tuaregs dominate basically all territory north of the Niger River, while the territory south of the Niger River is mostly populated by the Bambara people, another West African group spread across Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Senegal, and the Fulani, a Central African group inhabiting Mali, Eritrea, and Darfur. Now, this might sound okay, but unfortunately for the Tuareg, they don't really get on with the other ethnic groups in the region. And this isn't a new thing either. There's a history of tensions dating all the way back to the seizure of Agadez by the Songhai Empire in 1500, and the Tuareg are regularly discriminated against due to their lighter skin tone. The Tuareg are also drastically outnumbered in Mali, with them comprising just 5% of the population, and as such are often ignored or even disadvantaged by the government, which reliably spends far less money in the north than they do in the south. Anyway, this power imbalance has provoked regular Tuareg uprisings. In 1962, just 2 years after independence, Tuareg populations waged a civil war against the new government for 2 years, until Morocco and Algeria stepped in to help. Then, in 1990, Tuaregs took advantage of political instability and caused a region-wide famine and a subsequent refugee crisis to try and start another rebellion, which ended up lasting for 5 years and brought Mali into a full-on civil war. There was then a brief period of peace until 2017, when there was another Tuareg rebellion, after Tuareg leaders complained that the government hadn't implemented the peace deal agreed in 1995, with these new tensions finally ending with a peace deal in 2009. A deal which was backed by then Libyan President Gaddafi, who had secretly also funded the rebels. However, the most serious uprising came in January 2012. At that time, the entire region had been destabilized by the collapse of Gaddafi's regime in Libya, and Tuareg rebels had coalesced around a new group called the National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, or MNLA. While the MNLA were nominally a secular group focused on Tuareg independence, they ended up teaming up with jihadist terrorist groups in the region, most notably Ansar Dine, a terrorist organization who are affiliated with Al-Qaeda's North African branch. Anyway, with the jihadist support, the MNLA made swift progress throughout northern Mali, causing yet another military coup in the country. And by April, they were successful in capturing northern Mali's three largest cities, Kidal, Gao, and Timbuktu. After these successes, on April 16, 2012, the MNLA declared the Azawad state as independent, with this new country spanning most of Mali north of the Niger River and a bit of western Niger. Essentially, the areas previously populated by the Tuaregs. Unfortunately for the MNLA's ambitions, though, no foreign state recognized Azawad's legitimacy, and both the EU and the AU declared it as illegitimate. And things got even worse for them a few months later, when Ansar Dine voided their alliance after the two sides failed to agree on how to run their occupied cities. That's because while the Tuaregs are nominally Muslim, their version of Islam is far more moderate than the austere version of Islam practiced by Ansar Dine and other Islamist groups in the region. Following the breakup of the two sides, Ansar Dine quickly overwhelmed the MNLA, and in February of 2013, they renounced their independence claim and begged the international community for help against the Islamists. In response, France did send troops to the area to counter the Islamists, and then a few months later, in June 2013, the Malian government and the MNLA signed yet another peace agreement, which provided more autonomy for the Tuareg region and integration of Tuareg soldiers and leaders into the national Malian army and politics. And ultimately, this deal was conspicuously similar to the one signed in 1995, 2008, and 2009, all of which ultimately failed. So it didn't come as much of a surprise when just a couple of months later, the MNLA pulled out of the deal yet again, accusing the government of failing to deliver on their promises. However, the two sides finally sorted out a proper agreement in 2015, known as APR, which recognized Azawad as a, quote, socio-cultural reality, both commemorative and symbolic, as well as saying that the government would organize a disarmament, demobilization, and reinsertion process for members of the MNLA. In the years since, though, Mali has essentially collapsed into perpetual civil war. Various international organizations have tried to settle the violence. France has sent some 3,000 troops to the region. The US currently has about half of that, and in 2014, 5 other countries created the G5 Force, a 5,000-strong counter-terrorism force in the region. But none have succeeded. And in the last few years, jihadist and sectarian violence has increased steeply, spilling over into neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, Benin, and the Ivory Coast. Then, to make matters worse, in February of this year, President Macron announced that France and its European partners would be withdrawing from the region, in part because the new Malian government, who came to power via a military coup, had decided to hire the Wagner Group, an infamous Russian mercenary outfit, something that Europe just couldn't tolerate. And all of this hasn't gone down too well with the MNLA. They don't like the Russians either, and the new government is apparently making little progress on the APR agreement signed back in 2015. This ultimately has led to some speculation that the MNLA might void the agreement they currently have with the government, as they've done with all 4 prior agreements. And if this were to happen, then the MNLA might once again declare an independent Azawad state. And they might be successful too, because the Malian government doesn't have control of the area at the moment, and the Wagner mercenaries have proved ineffective in the region thus far. Jihadist groups are also apparently moving south, which leaves a power vacuum in Azawad. And in fact, that's why we're making this video right now. It looks possible that 10 years on, we might be about to see another attempt at an Azawad state. Ultimately though, the fact that Azawad is a possibility once again is a symptom of Mali's political collapse. So while it might be good news for the MNLA and Tuareg, it's pretty much bad news for anyone who wants stability in Northern Africa. And it's wider than that too, because Northern Africa isn't the only area of the world which is struggling with peace at the moment. But that isn't to say that everyone's at war. South America as a continent is surprisingly peaceful at the moment, as we discuss in our video exclusively on Nebula. You've likely heard us talk about our streaming service Nebula before, but it's at its lowest price ever right now. So give me 1 minute to explain to you why you should care. And as always with TLDR, there's 3 reasons. Firstly, signing up to Nebula gets you a ton of additional TLDR content. We release some of our videos exclusively on Nebula, and those are full-length proper videos, as well as a super fun studio tour. We also release longer versions of some of our videos. In fact, we release a longer version of our show, The Daily Briefing, on Nebula every single day. That's a lot more TLDR for you every day. Secondly, everything on Nebula is ad-free. And that's not just TLDR either. That's all of your favorite creators like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, Polymatter, Legal, Half as Interesting, and tons of others. And it's all ad-free, so there's no mid-rolls, and I wouldn't even be talking to you right now. Thirdly, signing up and watching on Nebula really helps the channel. And here's the maths. TLDR viewers signing up to Nebula has significantly improved our ability to monetize our content, which has allowed us to begin employing more staff and investing in new technology to improve our content. You might not notice it quite yet, but you soon will, and signing up is super helpful to make that possible. So, you're convinced, right? Did I do it in a minute? Who knows, it's pre-recorded. But anyway, if you did want to sign up for Nebula, the cheapest way to do so is with the Curiosity Stream Nebula bundle deal. That way, if you sign up to Curiosity Stream at the crazy low price of $11.59 a year, then you'll also get free access to Nebula as long as you're a paying member. That's right, 2 streaming services for less than $1 a month. And by the way, that crazy low price only lasts for this week. And it's worth saying that Curiosity Stream is awesome. It contains absolutely boatloads of high-quality documentaries on all kinds of topics that I know that TLDR viewers are going to love. So if you want both services for $11.59 a year, this week only, then the link is down below. And if not, well, I can't say I haven't tried to convince you. Thanks for your support.